Welcome everybody. So these guys are gonna be really cool. They are the Nidoqueen. This is loud as hell. Music is loud. Um, if you're new here, welcome. These videos will be pretty high energy. Also, these are going to be longer videos because the Nidos have a lot of changes, and they are also just really interesting Pokemon. So I'm going to be talking about them for a little while. So, sit back, grab a snack, get some water, make sure you're hydrated. If you're new here, this is a ROM hack for Pokemon Ultra Sun called Pokemon Sweltering Sun, and it is there's many goals, and it's massively reworked. Like I've changed virtually every single move, and it's just extremely optimized and creatively changed so that everything is just works together better. I will not say too much, and I will just be talking, and you can hopefully get into the feel for things and see how stuff works. But I will say the main quote-unquote goal is to make every Pokemon different from each other and viable. Not even just viable, but genuinely good. Like not like, oh, you could use it, but like genuinely you are not putting yourself in a worse spot by using this Pokemon. Every single Pokemon is on equal footing, and that's not as simple as we'll make everything 600 base that total and they're all equal. It's a lot more complicated than that, and it's a lot more nuanced than that. So I will be, and also I have to do all that within logical reasoning, meaning I can't just give Mons stupid abilities just because it's strong. I have to really think about it. So with that being said, we have the Nidoqueen and Nidorina line, and these guys are super awesome. So I want to set 3 goals for myself with this video. I want to explain obviously how they function and all of the actual like mechanical stuff. I want to explain the logic as to why I chose to do it this way, and I want to outline how do I explain this? I want to outline how it relates to Nidoking. All right, so one of their biggest issues. So here's a lot of things that are wrong with Nidoqueen in the vanilla games. Nidoqueen and Nidoking are severely underpowered. Yes, they're good. Yes, Nidoking had sheer force and it was strong and But at the end of the day, just looking at their designs, like their stats are not high enough for what their designs and for what their lore implies whatsoever. I mean, look at these guys. They are just not strong enough. So they are now what I like to call semi-pseudos. So these semi-pseudos all follow this base stat total. So they will be 335, 455, and 575, and they evolve at level 20 and 40, as opposed to 25 and 45 for the full pseudo legendaries. But yes, there are several 3-stage Pokemon with the 575 base stat total. Most of them are mixed attackers or just Pokemon that needed the stats because they were really strong and they just needed it. These guys are not mixed anymore. That's number one, quote-unquote controversial thing, mostly because there is a different special attacking poison ground type besides these two. That's number one. Number two is because they just don't really make sense to be mixed attackers. And number three, I needed the stat points and I didn't want to make them complete pseudos because then Nidorina and Nidorino would evolve at 45, and that just feels kind of cursed. Like 40 is a lot more reasonable in my opinion. So also, I would have to make Nidorino and Nidorina 480 base stat total for them to be pseudos, and they don't fit 480 base stat total. 455 is a lot more reasonable. So hope that clears that up. And again, they also just, because of the way that I buffed a lot of moves, they are better physically anyways, in terms of their move pool and the moves that make sense for them. So with that being said, Nidoqueen and Nidoking, they were virtually indifferent from one another. The only differences being slightly more HP and bulk on Nidoqueen and slightly more speed and attack on Nidoking. That difference basically just meant that Nidoking is always better in competitive, besides a few niche examples where Nidoqueen is better. But overall, Nidoking has always just been better than Nidoking because their abilities were the fucking same, and it just doesn't really work out that well from a mechanical point of view. So they do both keep their Poison Ground typing. I actually considered Poison Dragon or Poison Steel for Nidoking, but I ended up, number one, another Pokemon is Poison Steel instead, and number two, I kept Poison Ground because it's iconic, and because it's a better dual stab combination than Poison Steel is. And in Poison Dragon, there's other Poison Dragons as well. So Poison Ground is unique, although there is another Poison Ground besides these two, who will be very fun when I get to them. And I feel like nobody's going to guess it either because it's such a interesting choice. Anyways, not that it doesn't make sense, but it's something that you probably wouldn't expect. It's a form. Here's what I'll say without spoiling anything. It's a form of a Pokemon that the other form is not Poison Ground. That's what I'll say. If you can guess it off that, and I haven't mentioned it to you before, then good guess. So anyways, that's not a challenge. I wouldn't want to waste your time trying to guess that, but we'll get there eventually. That being said, I want to get back on topic. So Nidoqueen and Nidoking were very little, they had very little difference from one another. So my main goal was to make it so that they feel very distinct from one another and they're both equally viable. That was my number one goal. Number two is to make them both really fucking strong, because look at them and read these dex entries and read how goddamn strong they sound. I mean, these are like these are, I know that they're technically not that big. Like, I know that Nidoqueen is technically only 4 feet tall, and Nidoking's like 4.5 feet tall, maybe. Like, I know that they're technically really short, but like, ignoring the bullshit Pokemon sizes, like, these are fucking monsters, dude. Like, these are just some giant, tanky monsters, and they need to be stronger. So, I've given them different stat distribution and, most importantly, different abilities. So that way, Nidorina and Nidoqueen are a lot more defensive, and Nidoking is a lot more offensive. So stay tuned for the Nidoking video, which will come after this. This is a video dedicated to Nidoqueen, but what they have is different abilities that set them apart and different stat distribution. But they, like, for example, here's what I'll say: Nidoqueen is still very strong. It's still an offensive Pokemon. I mean, look at that attack stat. Of course it is. But in the same vein, so basically Nidoqueen is a defensive slash utility Pokemon that is also very strong, while Nidoking is a very strong offensive Pokemon that's also very bulky, if that makes sense. Just in the ways that their abilities end up functioning, that's just the way that they're going to be working, which is really cool, and that's how it should be. So that's number one thing I wanted to get out of the way. Number two, the typing on the pre-evolutions. I just think it's a really cool typing. I think it fits, given that they're like these weird rodent-esque things. And I think it's cool that they're dual typed and then they gain the ground typing when they evolve from normal. I considered just keeping them pure poison, but that's kind of boring. I like poison normal, especially on Nidorino, because he has hustle, and Nidoran male, they have hustle, and so they get like stab, hustle, normal type moves, which is really cool. And it's also just a really useful typing, because despite losing your resistance to fighting, you gain a ghost type immunity, which is a big deal, and you gain a ghost stab. And being immune to ghost is like one of the best traits in the game, because ghost is one of the best offensive types in the game, only being resisted slash immune by 2 types, dark and normal. So ghost is one of the best offensive types in the game, so it makes a lot of sense that it's a lot better for a Pokemon to be part normal in a lot of cases. Despite technically, yeah, they lose the resistance. It's not really a big deal. I would much rather trade that immunity for for losing a resistance and gaining a dual stab option. So I hope that covers that up. I hope you guys are on board with that change. Also, something in Pokemon Sweltering Sun, every single type combination is used at least once. That's not me saying, oh, like including type combinations from Gen 7 and 9. I mean, within the 721 Pokemon, or rather around 700 and like 5 or whatever that are going to be usable, because there's like 10 legendaries that you can't actually use. Between all of those Pokemon, every single type combination that is possible in the game is used. So there is another poison normal type in Licky, but and there actually is one more, which is a form change Pokemon that changes forms, but that doesn't really count that much. It does count, but it's not going to stay that type forever. It just changes forms. But the other one besides Licky is Nidorina and Nidorino, and they are also a Violite viable, although it's more of a niche choice. Like, you could use a Violite on them if you really wanted to, but obviously Nidoqueen is a lot better because of the abilities. But a Violite isn't bad. Like, it is very bulky with a Violite, and it is faster than Nidoqueen, and it does have a different typing. So like, you could actually use a Violite Nidorina. I like a Violite Nidorino more because of the abilities and because of the normal stab with hustle, because it has like stab, quick attack, and stuff. But that is for the video for Nidorino. So back on topic with Nidoqueen. Their abilities, I need to cover why I chose them. Then I can talk about the stats. Then I can talk about mechanical stuff, all right? So last logical explanation, then I can get into the nitty-gritty mechanical stuff. So Intimidate and Multiscale, both are extremely fitting, despite what you might think by looking at it. So you either are like, oh shit, that makes total sense, or those sound weird. So if Multiscale sounds weird, the Pokedex explicitly has referred to it ever since Gen 1 as scales. These are scales. It's covered in armored scales. So hard scales provide strong protection. Tough scales cover the sturdy body. Its body is covered with needle-like scales. It uses a scaly, rugged body, blah, 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 blah. Like, every single entry mentions its hard, strong scales, because it's, again, a defensive Pokemon. So Multiscale is also technically a defensive ability, although obviously defensive abilities can be used offensively to set up or to just get an attack off, and offensive abilities can be used in a defensive way as well, technically, but mostly the other way around. what am I trying to say here? Point being, multi-scale fits extremely well. It's perfect for Nidoqueen. Really, it's perfect. And then their other ability is Intimidate, which may seem a little bit weirder. However, when you think about the fact that they protect their young from predators, here I'll read a couple entries that scream Intimidate to me. So it will protect the young in its burrow with its life. It will shield its children from any kind of attack. It's strongest when it's defending its young. If it becomes excited, the needles bristle outwards. Protect its young and its nest from predators. Protect the young and its burrow with life, whatever. It never shows signs of shrinking from any attack. Like, this Pokemon is clearly, I mean, another ability that would have fit is Defiant. However, that ability is offensive in nature, and I wanted defensive abilities. So Intimidate is another defensive ability. I could have kept Rough Skin, but Multiscale would pretty much outclass Multiscale would pretty much outclass Rough Skin in every way, versus Intimidate is a lot more useful than a Multiscale in a lot of situations, because number one, Intimidate can be cycled over and over again, so you can use Intimidate plus Parting Shot, or just switch out and get that Intimidate cycling, and also Intimidate will support your teammates, while Multiscale only works on yourself. So with infinite use ability capsules, you can swap between these abilities at will, and that's a great asset to have. So you can swap between Intimidate and Multiscale as needed. And you should be doing that pretty damn often, because both abilities have immense utility in their own rights. So I hope that covers the abilities for that. As for the pre-evolutions, they have Poison Touch and Rough Skin, just solid abilities. I could have given them Poison Point, but I hate those types of abilities where it's like a chance effect on contact. Like, fuck that. I mean, in competitive, it's a little bit better because you're swapping in and out over and over again. But like in game, like it's just not worth the slot. Despite, yes, obviously Poison Point makes sense, but it just isn't good enough. So Poison Touch is just a niche, cool little ability they have. And then their other ability is Rough Skin, which I chose based on their, again, hard, like rough, scaly hide. And it's, again, a defensive ability versus Nidorino's offensive abilities in Merciless and Hustle, but I will cover those in the Nidoking video. So yeah, stat-wise now. So stat-wise, Nidoqueen keeps its base 90 HP, and it shares that with Nidoking because they are similar in size, and HP is based on size in this hack. So more based on size, not explicitly. Obviously, I didn't put like a math formula in. I just, I kind of eyeball it and look at how big and fat they are, and I change the HP stat to fit that better. So that's really awesome. And they have so much stuff. It's so fun. I really want to get one of these too. They are so cool in my first run, but obviously I'm going to be doing tons of runs, and I'll probably be streaming them. So you guys can, I'll be streaming the first run, and I'll probably be like uploading strategy guide videos for the second run. So that'll be fun. And I'll be doing hardcore no sucks for both. But anyways, yeah, the attack stat is massively buffed. So interesting things between the stats for Nidoking and Nidoqueen. Nidoking has 10 more speed and 10 more attack and 10 less defense. Those are the stat differences, and 10 less special defense. So Nidoking has 10 more attack and speed, but 10 less defense and special defense. Those are the only actual stat differences between the two, but those make a big difference when you consider the abilities as well. A huge difference. So they function very differently from one another. But at the end of the day, yes, they are still physically. I need to talk slower. They are still decently fast, very tanky, especially on the physical side, physically offensive poison ground types. That they do share that trait, obviously, but they have very different stats and abilities to the point where they function very differently. And depending on which one you get or which one you prefer, you can really make use of both of them. I didn't feel like a type change was necessary. Yes, I also considered Poison Fairy for Nidoqueen because she's a queen and she defends her young. I considered Poison Fairy and Poison Steel, but it's kind of dumb. And I would have done Poison Fairy if I needed that type combo, but I have another Pokemon that will be Poison Fairy type, so stay tuned for those. So I ended up keeping Nidoqueen and Nidoking. Same with Poison Steel. If I didn't have those Poison Steels and Poison Fairies, I would have made them these two, Poison Steel and Poison Fairy, for those unique combos. But either way, I think this is much. Well, not only the typings are both better offensively. Poison Ground is a great dual stab combination, and they are also arguably better defensively. Maybe not Poison Steel, but Poison Ground is better than Poison Fairy in a lot of situations defensively, or at least comparable. So, yeah, stats. 98 HP is very solid, very good. 131 attack. Given all of these dex entries talking about how it uses its hefty bulk to execute powerful moves and all this stuff, and it's just a giant fucking monster, yeah, it should have a giant attack stat. It doesn't have any boosting abilities, however, it does have a lot of setup moves, and 131 base attack on its own is already great. It has 128 base defense, which is immense, and 90 base special defense, which is slightly higher, just because of the whole armored vibes, and also just being defensive in nature. It just makes sense to have that special defense stat. And then the speed is slightly buffed, just for the base stat total reasons, and because it's, you know, it can run around relatively quickly in like a rampage type deal. Same thing goes for Nidoking, only he is even faster because he's also a lot more, not lightweight, but he's like more offensive, so you can like run around faster. Excuse me. So that's that with the stats. I hope that explains why I chose these stats. And again, they are massively buffed. And I also explained at the beginning of the video why they are not special attackers anymore. So yes, a lot of people are like, but I want this year force in the special sets because they're so used to doing that. But there are when I get to the Nidoking video, you'll see that the physical sheer force sets are already better than the special ones anyways now because of the move pool and the move buffs. So there's no point in me making a special. There's no point. And it's better this way. So yeah, and it's more unique as well. So yeah, Pokemon fans are really bad. Like a lot of games and people in general don't like change, but Pokemon fans especially are terrible when it comes to the way they approach change. It's kind of sad. Like a lot of people are just so averse to it. But anyways, I need to get back on topic. Intimidate and Multi-Scale are both immense and amazing. So with 90, 128, 90's bulk, both Intimidate and Multi-Scale make you extremely bulky. You can run Intimidate with Multi-Scale, or you can run, Intimidate. What am I trying to say? You can run Intimidate with Assault Vest, or you can run Multi-Scale with like an offensive setup set. For example, you can run Multi-Scale plus Dragon Dance, which is amazing with your 131. You have the bulk to set up 2 Dragon Dances for sure, given that Dragon Dance is 2BP. You can easily set up 2 Dragon Dances with either Intimidate or Multi-Scale. You also have Swords Dance and Bulk Up and other setup like Iron Defense, and you have Reliable Recovery and Slack Off at level 22. I considered Sediment, but it felt weird. I think Slack Off is just fine. They can just laze around and get HP back. The only reason I would like Sediment more is because Sediment heals 2/3 in Sandstorm, and they are ground types when they evolve, but it's not necessary, and it doesn't really fit because the ground typing in general is kind of weird on them. But it's a Gen 1 thing, and it's cool enough. So, God, I love these guys. They're so cool. I want both of them. Yeah, the pre-evolution Nidorina Nidoran is definitely viable until level 20, and you will have Nidorina just in time for Hala. Despite not resisting fighting, it's still very bulky and has rough skin, so 60, 92, 75 bulk is very solid for early game, and then that's very good. By the time you get a Violate, you will be in the early 30s, and then that will definitely carry you until level 40, and then you will be using the gem to evolve, because otherwise I cannot control the level at which you evolve, unless they just evolve by straight level up. But I want people to have the option to use a Violate Nidorina and Nidorino, even if it is technically worse. It's still nice to have that choice. So, and they also used to evolve with the Moonstone, so I think it's fitting that they still evolve with an item, just in a different one. With the reason I did that with the gems, if you're curious, is because gems don't waste Pokemon space because they're actually usable items and they're good items for like unburdened Pokemon, and like Flying Gem Acrobatics and stuff. They are nerfed, so like gems in general aren't that great unless you're using it for specific strategies, like unburdened and acrobatics and stuff. But regardless, or if you're playing with like item claws, which I think would be a fun challenge, if you can only run one of each item on your mons, that would be really fun. I might even do that on one of my second or third runs. Makes you have to think way more outside of the box, especially if you aren't doing Team Luck. I would definitely recommend doing item claws. But anyways, kind of wish I could enforce that, but it is what it is. What am I trying to say here? Yeah, your Nidorino will be easily good until level 40, and then some. It's pretty quick. It's actually faster. So Nidorina and Nidorino are both faster than Nidoking. I might combine these two in one video, and just set a timestamp for Nidoking and Nidoqueen, and just make like 1 hour long. Okay, here's what I'll do. No, that'll be a ridiculous ass thumbnail. Never mind. I don't know how to make that thumbnail work. Never mind. All right. Also, I think they're good enough to get their own videos. I don't want to have to repeat myself a bunch in the Nidoking video, but it is what it is. I'll probably just tell people to watch the Nidoqueen one first. Alright, enough thinking out loud. So, Poison Touch is very nice with a lot of contact moves, but especially nice with stuff like Fury Swipes, because it has several chances to poison them. But overall, you're going to be using Rough Skin most battles. Poison Touch is just there for flavor. I considered a couple other abilities, but I wanted them to be defensive in nature, and I think Poison Touch, technically, although it is offensive because you have to touch them to do it, I think it fits well enough given the, what's it called? What am I trying to say here? Given the fact that poison deals residual damage, so you can like heal and stuff, so I do think it is overall pretty defensive. I couldn't think of any other abilities that would work. I had like Sturdy at one point, but it just felt kind of weird. So, take a drink of my water. I guess Battle Armor could work. I could change it to Battle Armor. Read these entries. Yeah. Yeah, I don't really see it. Well, I kind of do, but it's fine. Anyways, sorry guys, I'm off topic. They are so fun. I really want to use these. Stats for Nidoran obviously is good until level 20. You know, it's fast, it's strong, it's bulky. It's just a good mon. And then Nidorina is again pretty strong, pretty bulky, it's just a very nice, well-rounded stats. It's quick enough to like outspeed things. It's bulky with a Violite, and without a Violite, it has good rough skin. It has Slack Off plus rough skin. You can run Rocky Helmet rough skin before you get a Violite, or after you get it if you want it. Or if you're using a Violite on somebody else for that fight, you can of course run Rocky Helmet rough skin. That's great with Slack Off. Especially with all of these like multi-hit moves running around, you know, you can really like punish those. So that's super awesome. They have tons of great utility. So before they evolve, obviously I'll talk about Nidoqueen in a little bit. I promise. I'm just going to cover up to level 40 because you are going to be using Nidorina for a substantial amount of time, up until mid Ula Ula or early Ula Ula, depending on the level curve. Exactly, but definitely not until like at least early mid Ula Ula will be level 40. So like definitely not earlier than Togedemaru, that's for sure. Probably around Totem Mimikyu, slightly before Totem Mimikyu is probably the time you'll be hitting 40. Or like exactly at Mimikyu, depending on how that works. But I'm getting sidetracked. So you have lots of great utility. You have Defense Curl early game. You have Barb Barrage, which will always poison, and at 60 base power and hits 3 times. Well, 60 base power total. Headbutt is nice with Poison Touch as well. All these contact moves are nice. You have Dual Stab priority with Poison Dart and Quick Attack, which is really great on Nidoqueen with Poison Dart. And obviously Dual Stab is great on these two. It's better on Nidorino because of Hustle, but I'll get to that when I get to that. They have Dig, which is just there for flavor. Spikes is there for flavor, and also because it's technically good. Not really, but like you can use it. Spiky Shield is there upon evolution, which is very nice to deal more damage. It works nice with like Rough Skin and Rocky Helmet with Spiky Shield. You can also use that with like a poisoning move, so you can poison them and then protect and like, you know, deal damage with Spiky Shield and all that stuff. Similarly, you can use Baneful Bunker to poison them when you protect, which is arguably better than Spiky Shield, which is why it's later. Screech is nice. It just does -1 to both offenses. Both defenses rather. Slack Off, like I said, is great. You have good coverage with Pin Missile, Spike Cannon, Fury Swipes, and then tons of coverage by Team and Tutors. So one thing that the Nidos are infamous for is having ridiculous amounts of coverage moves, and that has not changed, and they have even more now. They have literally every type in the game for physical coverage. Literally every single type. They have at least an 80 base power move for that type. Arguably, I think you could even say they have a +100. I think they might honestly have a 100 plus base power move for almost every type in the game. I think they have. Oh my god, do they? Besides like Shadow Punch, which is 80, and a couple others, and like Ice Fang and stuff. No, okay, they definitely have an 80 base power move for each type in the game. That's for sure. Physical coverage move. So that is. I mean, I guess no flying rather. They have Pluck only for flying. So that's weaker. But it's besides flying type, all right. Anyways, they have all this great coverage. You guys hopefully know what these all do by now. I'll talk about noteworthy ones at the end of the video when I comb through all of these, but I'm gonna be going in order of level ups first. So, Charm is very good for utility, -2 offensive, -2 attack rather, and then that's good with Rough Skin as well. Body Slam is really good stab. Poison Tail is really good stab. That's 95 base power, 95% accuracy for Poison Tail. Flail and Reversal are nice to have, but they are much better on Nidorino because of Hustle, but I'll get into him eventually. Toxic and Venom Drench are great. Just to have, and then Roar is great because Z-Roar gives you a free +2 attack boost, because what Z-Roar does is it forces the opponent out, and then it gives you +2 attack, and it's priority now, so it's only 1 PP, because otherwise, obviously, if I made a priority Roar and Whirlwind with 5 PP, you could just fucking click it 5 times and, you know, rack up Stealth Rock Spikes damage, and that would be overpowered as hell. So it's 1 PP, so it's kind of like a one-time use, like get the fuck out of my face type deal. And that's really, really useful, especially with the Z effect in this case being +2 attack for literally free. There's no risk behind it, and that's great. Dragon Tail is also really good to swap them out if you don't want to use Roar, if you're running an Assault Vest or something with like Drain Punch for healing. Dragon Tail is better on Nidoking though because of Hustle. Whiplash is nice just to whittle their defenses down at -1 defense each time. You also have Lunge via TM for the same deal, but it's Plug type instead of normal type. Skull Bash is great for Hustle Nidoking, not so much on Nidoqueen, so I'm not going to waste time talking about it here, but I will talk about that for Nidoking. Battle Cry is amazing. Battle Cry is -2 to attack and special attack, so that's amazing with Intimidate or Multiscale. It's great. You can completely neuter Pokemon that are in front of you. Even the most potent of offensive threats will crumble in fear to your Nidoqueen with Battle Cry. It can really check a lot of Pokemon. It's really nice to have Pokemons like this because, again, the power levels on Hack are very high. And obviously, Intimidate, you know, Ruthless Mon doesn't give a fuck about Intimidate, so you gotta run Multiscale for that. But yeah, Amnesia is great. That's +2 special defense. Counter is great for totems and stuff. Amnesia is great with Slack Off. You can also use Amnesia plus Bulk Up to get a lot of good stuff there. You have Hammer Arm, which works like Smackdown now, which is good because you have ground stab, so you can use Hammer Arm to smack them down to the ground. And that's also 120 base power and 90% accurate and does -1 speed, which isn't a big deal if you're not running a quick set. And you could use that with, and you can click Earthquake on them after, or whatever other fighting type, or sorry, ground type move you want to use on a flying type, so that'll work. The only downside being that obviously flying is just Hammer Arm, so that does work really well on like neutral flying types that are neutral to fighting, or Levitate Mons though, so it is a useful move, and it's powerful, and it's pretty early on compared to the other strong fighting type moves. Like Takedown is there, but it's recoil, and technically weaker than Hammer Arm, and then Superpower is late game, and so close combat, so Payback is great because you're bulky. You're always moving last with Payback. It's negative priority, but it's 120 base power overall, so that's just really powerful dark type coverage. Headlong Rush is extremely powerful. That essentially is recoil, and it does -2 to both your defenses, so that's really powerful. It's 150 base power, close combat effect, as well as Flare Blitz recoil. So that's what it's those that combined into one move. There's also other moves like that with Head Smash and other moves that I'll cover with Nidoking. You have Precipice Blades at level 70, which is 130 base power, and I believe 85% accuracy, and it has a 30% chance to burn, so it's just a nice strong attack. It is 30% stronger than Earthquake, but it is inaccurate, and it has a 30% chance to burn, so that's the reason you use it over Earthquake. If you need that power boost, or if you want that burn rate, or if you're running like a Wide Lens or something. You also have Megaton Kick, which is 120 base power, 90% accuracy, with a 30% flinch rate, and that's reteachable via TM. So, and now I'll cover the TMs. So you have good setup with Work Up, Hone Claws, Agility, Iron Defense, Swords Dance Bulk Up, Z-Roar, I already said Bulk Up and Swords Dance, I think. Dragon Dance is amazing. Dragon Dance is one of their best setup moves in the late game. You get that in Totem Komodo's lair, so it's very late game, but it's very great. It's the last TM you get access to. The rest of the moves after Dragon Dance, if you see those listed ever, those are always post-game tutor moves, which is a shame, but it is what it is. Can't really change that. There's got to be some of them post-game, you know, and Superpower was too strong for Ula Ula Island. The rest of them are all just kind of the quote-unquote rejects. Last Resort isn't really a reject. It's more of just, hey, this move is really situationally overpowered. So, and also it's useless without the move the leader. So you may as well just make it when you can get the move the leader. Actually, no, sorry, move the leader is earlier on, but it doesn't matter, all right? This is not a video explaining the TMs and tutors, although I will have a video of that eventually. You have infinite coverage here. I'm not even going to waste time covering it all, but you have, okay, I will actually. Graph's not as physical. You have Covet and Play Rough. You have Knockoff and Payback and Fairy Swipes and Crunch and all these Dark Health Thrust, all these Dark type moves. You have tons of ground type stab. You have all the punches. You have so much stuff here. All right, you guys, even, I mean, you can look up what they do if they are changed. Most of these are changed in some way or buffed in some way, but I won't cover it all because it's going to take forever. But yeah, that's just, you know, point being, you have all this coverage via TM, so you can just teach your Nidoqueen coverage with setup sets and just hit things super effectively for free. Yeah, I think that actually is almost it. I mean, again, you have Dragon Dance, which is amazing with multi-scale. You have Bulk Up and Swords Dance, which is amazing with multi-scale. You can use Swords Dance plus like Poison Dart for priority if you want. You can use Weakness Policy multi-scale sets, which are nutty if you wanted to run like a Weakness Policy Dragon Dance or Weakness Policy Rock Polish set. It's really, really good. Did I get them Rock Polish? Or did it only give Nidoking Rock Polish? I only give Nidoking Rock Polish, I guess, because of what's it called? Because of Hustle. But like Nidoqueen could totally have it too. But you have Agility, which is the same thing. I kind of want to give Rock Polish. I just don't know what I mean. They don't need Last Resort. Yeah, I'll put Rock Polish on there. Rock Polish is after Natural Gift in chronological order. If you guys aren't familiar, these are also obviously not obviously, but it does say it there, so it is obvious. But people miss things. It's okay. Yes, these are chronological order in the order that you obtain the TMs. So let me quickly click that box in files to make sure that they get it. Nido Arena. Rock Polish is like what? 74 and then 74. There we go. All right, cool. So that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's really about it. Like, they're just really fucking bulky, really strong. Again, Pardon Shot plus Intimidate is great. Toxic Spikes, multi-scale, all this great utility. You have so many options, so many things you can do. Slack off multi-scale, you can get that multi-scale back. It's so fun and so strong. And they really are. I'm happy with how powerful Nidoqueen and Nidoking are. They truly do deserve it. Just looking at their designs, and they're like Gen 1 OGs, and they've been. I mean, yeah, Sheer Force is a good buff. Don't get me wrong. Like, they are good with Sheer Force, but they needed more, man. They deserve more, and now they have what they deserve. And I'm very happy with how they turned out, and I'm very happy with how the two are different from one another. So I will be recording Nidoking literally right after this. This video wasn't as long as I thought it would be. If I look at the timestamp, it's about 30 minutes because I'm going very quickly. Like, I'm actually being very concise than I usually am, so I'm proud of that. Given all the stuff I had to cover, 30 minutes is a very reasonable time. So, yeah. I don't think I missed anything, really. Thank you for listening, everybody. And I'll be doing Nidoking next, so stay tuned for that.